And I will give the word to the President, Boris Micic.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Steen. Dear participants, will you share the screen, Jana? Yeah. Dear participants of this webinar dedicated to the European Long Distance Pass, the ERA board welcomes you, and we believe that you will spend the next 1.5 hours in a pleasant mode, listening information you may partially know, but not always enough to have the full knowledge. Something for sure you will hear for the first time. Something will remind you, and something can inspire you to start or to continue with walking on the e-pass. In any case, welcome to the ERA webinar and enjoy next minutes. Let me introduce you to the evening event. I believe that you still remember ERA's celebration of 50th anniversary in 2019. As ERA was founded on 19th of October 1969 in the Nägele House on the Reichberg, which belongs to the Schwäbische Albverein. According to the statutes of the new organization dated in 1969, one of the main goals was to create a network of pedestrian paths and to simplify passport and customs regulations on pedestrian paths. On that occasion, a path commission was formed, headed by the Swiss Walter Zeugin. Although the plan getting ready of the path 1 and 5 had to be opened to the large public on July 16, 1971 in Constance on Bodensee, it was actually realized only in July 1972. A commemorative plate in the Stadtgarten of Constance in the witness of this act. About the short history of e-path Commission and its work will be presented by Rolf Ebert. 7-8 years ago, the former ERA Presidium abolished the both then existing commissions, Walking and Path. The current ERA leadership has to refound it, but this time as a working group for e-pass, which started to work on March 23rd, 2019 in Tarifa in Spain. We will hear from its chairman, Steen Hansen, what were their tasks, how it works, and what they has done so far. As the date of founding, the e-path.net in Europe was established by promotion of the crossing of E1 and E5. We decided that the so-called e-path friends, persons who are passionate about walking on e-path and have experience on these two paths, Detlef Körner for E1 and Budwein Blum Herbeck for E5 will tell us their impressions, knowledge, and perhaps suggestions for further development and improvement to help ERA management for better organization of the further work. On the other hand, can give advice and new ideas to the numerous e-path users. After E1 and E5, there were planned other paths to be prepared as E2, E3, and 4, each to be ready for 1 year consecutively. So E4 was foreseen to be prepared for 1975. What's more, it crosses at the same point with E5 and with E1 and E5 in Kreuzlingen. For this reason, before discussion, we asked John Packnell to present his book, 6 Pairs of Boots, Spain to Cyprus on the E4 trail, and in this way, tell us the story about E4. This very interesting literature gives a lot of experiences, shows contemporary problems, but also how to solve them on the site. I believe this will be an interesting summer evening, so enjoy it. Your host for this evening will be Steen, chairman of the ePath Working Group. Please, Steen, microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Boris. And we will now turn over to a very experienced man, that is Rolf Ebert, who has worked hard with our archive around the ePath. He has made a huge job the last years on this archive. So nobody else than Rolf can tell about the history and the summary of the ePath history. So, Rolf, I give you the word, and please remember to turn on your microphone. Rolf, the word is yours. And we need your microphone, Rolf. We can't hear you.
Guten Abend auch von mir hier aus dem Vogtland. Und ich versuche also mit der vorliegenden Präsentation die Geschichte der Wegekommission der EWV ein wenig aufzuarbeiten. Anlass für diese Rückschau war der 50. Jahrestag der Gründung. Die in einer Zeittafel zusammengefassten Ereignisse wurden aufgrund der vorliegenden Dokumente, Protokolle, Konzeptionen, Rundbriefe, Einladungen und ähnlich zusammengestellt. Der enge zeitliche Rahmen des heutigen Vortrages erzeugt natürlich Zeitsprünge und komprimiert die Ereignisse. Dafür gibt es sicherlich Verständnis. Dankeschön. Also eine Zeitenreise per Aktenordner. Das nächste bitte. Die internationale Zusammenarbeit der Wandervereine im Bereich um den Bodensee gab es bereits mehrere Jahre. Und hier für uns ist also dieser Aktenvermerk wichtig, dass 1968 die Beratung zum Wanderweg rund um Basel, an der Vereine aus Deutschland, Frankreich und der Schweiz teilnahmen, beschlossen hat, 1969 eine Tagung zu den durchgehenden Wanderwegen aufzunehmen. So weiter. Diese Tagung fand dann am 19.10.1969 statt und es wurde also die Europäische Wandervereinigung gegründet. Es wurde der Präsident gewählt, Dr. Georg Fahrbach, und es wurde auch der Vorsitzende der Wegekommission berufen, Walter Zeugin aus der Schweiz. Weiter. Hier ist das Gründungsprotokoll im Auszug wiedergegeben. In der Satzung, Boris hat es schon gesagt, gab es nur 2 Hauptaufgaben, nämlich die Schaffung eines internationalen Wanderwegenetzes und zum Zweiten die Vereinfachung der Pass- und Zollvorschriften auf den Wanderwegen. Für die Aufgaben, die zur Planung und Umsetzung eines internationalen Wegenetzes realisiert werden sollten, wurde eine Wegekommission berufen. Weiter bitte. Eine erste Übersichtsskizze vom April 1971, angefertigt von Walter Zeugin. So sah also die Planung des Wegenetzes aus. Und man hatte also sich diese hier im Bild zu sehenden schweren Emailleschilder, ich halte mal eins hier noch hoch, ausgesucht. Leider, die Anforderungen wurden da nicht gerecht. Viel Rost und Emaille abspringen und vor allen Dingen teuer in der Herstellung wurde das also dann bald vergessen gemacht, diese großen Schilder. Und zum anderen hatte man auch nicht die Nummer der Wege mit aufgebracht, die wurden dann später aufgeklebt. Nächste. Die Eröffnungsfeier der beiden Europawege 1 und 5, wir hatten vorhin schon gesprochen, wurde natürlich unter großer Öffentlichkeit durchgeführt, aber auch so die Skepsis für dieses doch große, umfangreiche internationale Projekt war da. So schrieb unter dem Titel Fernwanderwege vor der Verwirklichung die Neue Zürcher Zeitung über die Eröffnung der beiden Wanderwege. Vor allem durch den völkerverbindenden Charakter der Wege ist ihnen ihre Existenzberechtigung durchaus zuzubilligen. Ja, gut. Nächste bitte. Walter Zeugin, dieses Foto ist also zu seinem 80. Geburtstag aufgenommen worden. Zu würdigen wäre also nicht nur seine Einsatzbereitschaft bei der Verwirklichung von organisatorischen Aufgaben, sondern das Einbringen seiner gesamten Persönlichkeit für die Arbeitsfähigkeit der Wegekommission und vor allem das Zusammenwirken mit Präsident Fahrbach und dem Präsidium. Weiter. 1975 anlässlich des Wandertreffens auf dem Seeberg bei Mariazell wurden die Fernwanderwege E4, E6 eröffnet. Weiterhin erfolgte die Enthüllung des von Wanderfreund Karl Hermann geschaffenen ersten europäischen Fernwanderwegekreuzes. Motto dieser ganzen Angelegenheit war: Mögen die Wege Völker verbinden. Weiter. Nach dem Tode von Dr. Fahrbach wurde Paul Schäublin als Präsident gewählt und er sagte, ein Quäntchen zur Völkerfreundschaft beitragen. Das wäre wichtig, natürlich auch, so wie aus heutiger Sicht. Und es wurde unter Leitung von Walter Zeugin ein Arbeitsdokument erstellt für die Wegekommission. Und hier wurde genau festgehalten, welche Aufgaben für Stabilität und Nachhaltigkeit der Wegearbeit realisiert werden müssen. Ja. 1979 wurde Dr. Robert Wurst aus Österreich Vorsitzender der Wegekommission. Die Wegekommission hatte damals 17 namentlich erfasste Mitglieder und die Europäische Wandervereinigung 34 Mitgliedsvereine. Die Diskussion, dass jeder Mitgliedsverein ein berufenes, ordentliches Mitglied der Wegekommission entsenden darf, kam immer wieder zum Vorschein. Aber dieses Thema wurde nach Aktenlage niemals richtig und mit Erfolg ausdiskutiert. Es blieb immer etwas in der Schwebe. Next. Seit 1976 gab es die Diskussion, dass in der Satzung die Existenz der Kommissionen nicht vorhanden sei. So wurde aber dann doch 1983 erstmals in der Satzung mit Paragraph 13 die Möglichkeit der Gründung und beziehungsweise die Existenz von Kommissionen aufgenommen. Damit wurde neben der fehlenden Dokumentation für die Gründung der Wegekommission, das hatte man einfach vergessen, die zweite große Lücke geschlossen, die ihren Ursprung ebenfalls in der Gründungsphase hatte. Ja, ab und zu gab es auch in der Wegekommission heiße Diskussionen, vor allen Dingen, wenn es um die Zusammenarbeit mit den beiden Verlagen ging, die Wanderführer herausgaben. Und die Kommissionsmitglieder wurden gebeten, nur mit diesen beiden Verlagen zusammenzuarbeiten. Mit den Worten von Dr. Robert Wurst wurde die Situation wie folgt dargestellt. Andernfalls, wenn also mit mehreren Verlagen zusammengearbeitet würde es sich ähnlich wie mit dem Kreis der Atombombennationen verhalten, das heißt nicht mehr beherrschbar. Mit solcher farbigen Sprache war Dr. Wurst dann immer gerne bei der Sache. So, nächste bitte. Aber selbst der Weitblick eines Dr. Wurst konnte nicht so schnell sein, wie die politische Ereignisse in ihrer Tragweite sich selbst fast überholten. In dieser Wendezeit gab es eine besondere Begebenheit. Es gab am 9. November 1989 den Fachkongress der EWV Freizeit in Europa in Wallerfangen im Saarland. Freizeitverbände aus 20 Ländern waren dort anwesend, 70 Teilnehmer und erstmalig eine Delegation des DDR-Wander- und Bergsteigerverbandes. Und so wurden also gemeinsam die Stunden der Grenzöffnung erlebt. Wir haben also im Archiv persönliche Berichte, die da vorliegen. Und die Empfindungen gingen also von, wir glauben das nicht, nicht zu glauben. Unglaublich. So war also diese Situation dann umschrieben. Bitte nächste. Bereits im Jahr 1990 wurden Verbindungen zu vielen Wanderverbänden im Osten Europas gesucht und hergestellt. Und im Zuge dieser neuen geopolitischen Entwicklung 1991 aktuell zusätzliche europäische Fernwanderwege im Entstehen begriffen, so der E9, Atlantik, Nordsee, Ostsee, E10, Ostsee, Mittelmeer und der E11, Verlängerung des Harz-Holland-Weges. Und hier möchte ich noch einmal Dr. Wurst zitieren, es sollte keine Inflation der Anzahl der Europawege geben, denn mit dem bisherigen E1 bis 11 ließen sich alle Regionen Europas erschließen. Bitte nächste. Ja, Präsident des Clubs tschechischer Touristen konnte also dann nach der politischen Wende auch der Präsident der Europäischen Wandervereinigung sein und mit ihm im gleichen Jahr dann der Wechsel bei der Wegekommission, die von Franz Schlinzig vom Deutschen Wanderverband geleitet wurde. Beide Wanderfreunde, das muss man doch sagen, haben eng zusammengearbeitet. Ich habe im Nachlass von Frank Schlinzig allein über 70 Vorträge, Referate, Presseartikel und so weiter gefunden, die zum großen Teil in Gemeinschaftsarbeit dieser beiden Wanderfreunde entstanden sind. Nun noch einmal etwas zum Schmunzeln, denn hier ein besonderes Beispiel für die Notwendigkeit der Digitalisierung, der Schreibtechnik und der Computertechnik, denn ehrenamtliche Arbeit kann auch schwer sein. Das ist also ein Brief mit der Bitte um Herstellung eines druckreifen Konzeptes für einen Wanderwegeführer. So weiter. 2004 kam es dann zur ersten europäischen Konferenz über die Wegemarkierung. Die Wegemarkierung der Fernwege in den einzelnen Staaten und Regionen wurden beschrieben. Die Wegemarkierung als integraler Bestandteil der regionalen Geschichte und Kultur definiert und ein Minimum der Regeln für die Fernwanderwegmarkierung festgelegt. Danke, Rainer. Ja, dann kam im September 2007 nach Franz Schlinzig Uroš Švidović aus Slowenien an die Spitze der Wegekommission, aber nach wie vor standen eben immer noch die Europawege, aber deren Zustand und Pflege der Markierung, Wegweisung im Mittelpunkt der Bemühungen. In dieser Zeit konnten auch einige Regionalkonferenzen abgehalten werden. Und zu dieser Zeit wurde dann auch diese neue Markierungsform mit den blauen Schildern, mit den Europasternenkranz eingeführt. Weiter. Ja, das in Fratsch in 2013 kam es zur Satzungsänderung, sodass die Kommissionen automatisch aufhörten zu bestehen. Das Licht am Ende des Tunnels als positiver Ausblick in der Konferenz von Braschow wurde dann wieder die richtige Gewichtung für die Bedeutung der E-Wege gesehen. Und ich möchte jetzt sozusagen am Ende meiner kurzen Ausführung das noch mit in ein Fazit einbeziehen. Bitte weiter. Ja, negativ sozusagen. Es gab also mehrmals die Bildung von Wegekommissionsuntergruppen, um die Arbeit zu erleichtern, aber das scheiterte meistens an den erhöhten Reisekosten. Hier fehlten einfach die Finanzen. Dann die fehlenden Aktivitäten zur Durchsetzung der Geschäftsordnung der Wegekommission. Hier wurde keine Anpassung von Struktur und Umfang der Kommission durchgeführt. Aber eine große Differenz gab es auch zwischen dem Ruf nach Erweiterung und Neuanlage von Wegen und den realen Möglichkeiten für die Markierung und der nachhaltigen Betreuung. Nächste. Viel Enthusiasmus im positiven Fazit waren bei der Gründung von den Gründungsvätern in die Mitgliedsvereine zu sehen, die doch zum Teil noch unbekannt waren. Manchmal war das auch in der Aktenlage recht abenteuerlich zu lesen. Die Schaffung eines Netzes von europäischen Fernwanderwegen war eine riesengroße Aufgabe. Die europäischen Fernwanderwege spielten in der öffentlichen Wahrnehmung der EWV die Hauptrolle. Und daran glaube ich auch heute noch. In dem Sinne, daran hat die Wegekommission wohl einen maßgeblichen Anteil und es hat größte Anerkennung verdient. Und jetzt geht es dann trotzdem weiter mit dem, was sich aus der Sitzung in Braschow entwickelte, nämlich eine Arbeitsgruppe der Europäischen Wandervereinigung für die Wanderwege. Und jetzt noch einmal von mir die letzte Folie. Ich möchte Ihnen zum Schluss 3 gute Wünsche für die Wegearbeit mitgeben. Immer viel Freude bei der Markierung. Immer eine aktuelle Wegweisung und immer eine lückenlose Markierung. Und vor allen Dingen bleiben Sie gesund. Ich bedanke mich für die Aufmerksamkeit.
Vielen, vielen Dank, Rolf. Das war sehr interessant. Und I go to English now, and thank you very much, Rolf. It was very interesting, and I think it is a very good telling about our history in 15 minutes. It's you could, I'm sure, have done it for 10 hours. Yeah. But thank you very much. We now turn over to where we are right now, and Jana, please, the presentation. And first, I can just say that we have just recently bought this domain you see in the top right, which is called epass.org. If you type that one in, you will end on our website for the 12 ePass. And the reason for that is our feeling was that people could not find the ePass. But we hope with this one that more people can find the ePass and all the good information about it. On my screen, the presentation disappeared. Jana? Yeah, we just make a short break. Yeah, thank you. We are on again. And next slide, please. This is just to show you the e-pass. I think all of us here today know the e-pass, but it is 65,000 kilometers that we are having on 12 e-pass here. So it is a lot of trails we are covering with our e-pass. Next slide, please. As Boris said before, the e-pass working group, you can see the logo on the top. We were formed in 2019 in Tarifa, and we are consisting of 5 members, but also the president and Jana are supporting us from time to time. We met in 2019, as I said, but we only managed to have 1 meeting in Tarifa and 1 in Munich, and then we were hit by the corona virus. And from that, we only had virtual meetings. And in fact, for the first time in 3 years, the working group will meet again physically in Friedrichshafen here on Saturday when we do the big celebration. To the right of the PowerPoint, you can see if you go on this epass.org site, you on some down on the page below all the epass, you can see this bottom called epass coordination, and that is where you can read about the epass working group, what we are doing, and what is our intentions of the working group. Next slide, please. The verified ePass we invented rather quickly during our discussions about the ePass, and the reason for that is we had a lot of open source data, but we did not have our own verified data which we could present one place. So we decided to again to gather the verified data from our member organization so we could ensure the correct data of the trails. And so far we have, I would say, only got 48% of the trails which are verified. But the first year or 1.5 year, we just had a lot of work just to get the right contact, so the right persons in the member organization. So that was a lot of time we used for that in the beginning. But now, as you can see, 50%, the half of it are now verified, and they are now presented on our website. So it is good, but still not good enough. We should be able to get much higher. What we also do is we are recommending the verified ePass. And that is because we know that the data are correct. We know that the member organizations are ensuring that it is correct. So that's the reason why we from ERA recommends the verified ePass to choose from. Of course, people can also go on the other ones which are not verified yet, but the data for the verified ePass are very good. And thanks for that to the member organization who have already provided us data for that one. Next slide. We are calling it, again, you can find it as this epass.org, but we call it also a kind of hiking holidays. That's also because people can find it via Google. So if they are seeking for hiking holidays or something else, we will show up on Google with high ranking. So that's also a way to show the very good verified ePass. One example, next slide, please, is E4 in Germany. Each verified ePass is a specific ePass in a specific country. And here, this is just a copy of the website for the E4 in Germany. And we have got all the data from Germany. In this case, it was Helmut Schuster from Germany who provided us with the correct data. And much what we are doing is we are linking back to the original websites. For example, if there's a German website that contains the right data, then we are linking back to that page. So we don't have a lot of information on this verified ePass page. It differs a little bit from who gives us the data, but this is just the start of the website. And if you can scroll down, you can't do it here, but if you're scrolling down, you will see much more description and references to books and links and so on. So you can easily use this one to walk with. Next slide, please. Now I turn to the ePass certificates. It has been existing for many years, and there are some persons who have done these certificates, and there are 2 in total. And the certificate number 1, that is if you walk on the same ePass in 3 different countries with 50 kilometers per pass, and all within 3 years. And the second criteria, that is the 6 different ePass where you have walked a minimum 20 kilometers, also within 3 years. We have a website on this, but you can see down to the right, where you can see or read everything about the certificate and also who have got it. And we have an example, 2 examples here on the next slide. And you will see John, who is present today. He walked on E4 in 3 different countries from 2017 to 2019. And congratulations with your certificate, John. And as late as today, we have signed the other certificates. That is for Bernd, who lives in Germany. He has walked on 6 ePass, and you can see them here, E1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 8. And he is the second person in the world who have done this. Put Wang, which you will meet later, he is the first person who have done this. So, but congratulations to you, Bernd. I don't know if you're listening in here or on Facebook, but this is your certificates, which you will get later in a proper way. Next slide, please. So, 12 Wege ein Europa. We call it 12 ePass, 1 Europe. And you can see the hashtag in the below right side, where you can find the things about this on the social media. Next slide, please. And this, what we call in ERA 12 ePass 1 Europe. That's a project from Deutsche Wandermagazin, and we expect it last 12 years. And each year we have 12 ePass, therefore it will take 12 years. So each year they will focus together with us on an ePass. And in 22, they focus on E1, and next year in 23, they will focus on E4. And we have a website for this, all these events. And you can, as I said before, you can follow it on the hashtag on Facebook and Instagram. But also, it was started in Detmold 1 month ago with a big event, a huge event, where there were a lot of walkings and so on. And then the first walk was started in Padborg in Denmark 2 days after, where there were 2 persons from Deutsche Wandermagazin who started walking, and they are right now in Hamburg, and they will continue from Hamburg on Monday. So we are still following them all the time, and we hope that with this fantastic project here, we can go together to highlight also 1 Europe. That's one of the purposes about this, to show that we are 1 Europe. Next slide, please. ePass friends, you will meet them very soon, 3 of them, and they are friends of us who have walked long distances on ePass and who have a high knowledge of the trails from their own experience. And that is also very needed for us in the working group, so we can get a lot of experience in. And we had already had 1 meeting with them where we discussed a lot of things with our friends. So this is a very good experience we are getting into the working group, because we have of course not walked everything, and we are far from that. And today we will hear from three our friends about E1, E4, and E5. Next slides, and that is the last slides. This is the my presentation, what I would say where we are right now and where we are moving for the next period here. So I think we can stop the presentation, Jana, and then I will turn over to Detlef, Körner, who will talk about E1. Detlef is one of our EPAS friends, so I hand over the word to you, Detlef.
Yes, thank you very much, Steen. As was said, my name is Detlef Körner. I live in Hamburg, Germany, and that's probably one of the reasons why I hiked on the E1. It goes straight through the middle of my hometown. The E1 is from North Cape down to Sicily, Capo Passero. And this picture was taken in Sweden, where one of the few places where I saw the blue European trail sign. Next, please. Before I go into more details per country, a few facts. It's about 8,000 kilometers long, passes through 7 countries. The highest point is in the Alps at a bit over 2,000 meters. It's a few times down at sea level. It's all the way marked down to Fortino in Italy. From there, the rest is still a work in progress. In Norway, it's not always a trail. And most important, you cannot walk this trail all year round. Next, please. I hiked it over several years, all the way from North Cape down to Lugano, Switzerland. I have not done Italy yet because of Corona. I always hike on my own. I may meet someone and we walk together, but I always start on my own. Weather-wise, on this trail, you can have everything from snow to sunshine, whether you hike in summer or fall or winter or whenever. And more often than not, you will be on your own. I've had several days in a row where I didn't see another person. And a tent is a requirement in the very north and in the south. In the middle part, not so much. Next, please. Let's start with Norway, Finland, and a bit of Sweden. The trail crosses in the north several times borders. There's a long winter and with short daylight hours and a lot of snow. So the winter would be possible on snowshoes and ski, but not on foot. In the spring, you have to ford a lot of waters with high water, where, well, you not only take off your boots, you may even have to take off your pants to get through the water. Some parts they have set up where it is more common, where you find more people. There are bridges, but up north, it's often you have to get out of your boots and walk through the river. In the summer, you have long daylight hours. I've had many nights where I could see the sun 24 hours. You also have to consider you have there limited resupply options. As there are not many people living, obviously there are not many stores. And the northern part, as I mentioned earlier, you have to have a tent or you sleep out in the open. Partly it's cross-country hiking with, in Norway, limited or no markings. I found some stretches that were supposed to be marked where there were no markings, or the distance from one mark to the next was too long. You couldn't see the next marking. You were going cross country, so you needed a GPS track. Next, please. This picture shows in the background North Cape, but in the front, the really northern point. This is about 1 kilometer further north than North Cape. This is in Swedish Knivsfjällodden. Knivsfjäll is a kind of shell. Next, please. This is a typical picture in northern Norway. No trees, rocks, a bit of grass. Even in the middle of summer, snow and lakes. Next, please. This shows you the high water. This was in August, not even in spring, but in August. And you can see this bridge is supposed to be accessible from both sides on dry ground, up the stairs, and then walking across the river channel. The year I came through, in the foreground, the white part, that's a snow field. I had to get off the snow field into the water, walk to the bridge, get across, and walk to the dry ground and put my shoes and boots on, and had very, very cold feet. Next, please. This is the trail across the snow field. Again, it's in August. And this is the typical marking in Norway, the red T. Next, please. That's the same hill, exactly the same hill, just the picture is taken from the bottom and not from the top. It was 2 years before the previous year, previous picture. You see no snow except a few remnants up on the top. So you might find in 1 year a lot of snow, in the next year hardly any. Next, please. In Sweden, you end up between wilderness and civilization. In the more northern part of Sweden, it's sometimes more like Norway, but most of the trail, once you have finished the first couple of 100 kilometers, you find shelters. Shelters are 3 walls, a roof, and a wooden floor where you can put out your mattress and your sleeping bag and stay in there for the night. In Sweden, the trail is mostly well maintained. It's much, much easier than in Norway for resupply. And you mostly walk in forests. And you meet other hikers. You're not on your own anymore. Next, please. This is one of the typical shelters. As you can see, my stuff in there. Next, please. And that's one of the trails, Vasaloppsleden. That's typical in Sweden. Nice, well done, easy to walk. Next, please. But sometimes, even in Sweden, I found in Gullbergen, for example, the trail being like this, wet. With every step you do, and you have to be careful that the water doesn't get in to your boots from the top. Next, please. Then taking the ferry over from Sweden to Denmark. Denmark is mostly flat country. There were just a couple of short stretches with slight ups and downs. You can easily do it in 2 weeks. The trail is very well marked and maintained. You don't need to carry much food because there are stores along the trail, and you can hike it year round. Next, please. This is example of one of the trails, well marked. The one thing you may need to know in advance is how is the trail marked, because it consists of many local trains which are stitched together seamlessly, but you need to know which of the markings you have to follow on the next stretch. Next, please. Germany, it starts rather flat in the north near the Baltic coast and goes south to Lake Constance, where it becomes more and more mountainous. You often walk along forest gravel or farm gravel roads, or even on paved roads. It's, except for Black Forest, you often go from village or town to village. So there are plenty of lodgings along the trail. It's easy to resupply, and you pass through many touristy places. So whereas in Norway, Sweden, Finland, it's nature, and basically only nature. In Denmark, it's mostly nature, and in Germany, you find, as I said here, a number of touristy places. Next, please. That's a typical forest road. Next, please. Or here, more in the open. It's easy hiking, it's flat. You can make a lot of kilometers a day, or sit around and enjoy nature and have a great time. Next, please. And this is in the Black Forests on the highest mountain there, Feldberg. Even so, you see only a few people here. There were hundreds when I came across, and you can see the cable car that takes people up to the top. Next, please. Then we come to Switzerland. Here you cross the Alps, but crossing the highest point is easy. It's an easy walk up and down the pass. It's well marked and well maintained, plenty of lodgings, many supermarkets, and again, within 2 weeks, you can get across Switzerland. Next, please. This is at Lake Constance. Next, please. And this is the southern point in Italy, in Switzerland, in Morcote. And in the background, you can see Italy. The trail continues on the other side across the lake, more to the left, or on the left side across the lake. There the trail continues. Next, please. As I said, I haven't done Italy yet, but I've prepared the hike there, so I've read a lot about it, looked at a lot of pictures. From what I've learned is the southern part is still missing. Work is being done, but it's not finished yet. I read a lot about that it is not always maintained. It was once made, but then forgotten. It's mostly mountainous trail. From what I could see is resupply, you need good planning to know, as it's always if you hike in the mountains, where do I go down and into the valleys and can buy food. A tent is required. And what I've seen is very important because it's so far south. You have to hike in late spring or fall due to high temperatures in summer. And from between spring and fall, the spring is preferable because in fall, the water is becoming scarce. And we can see it this year. They have a big drought in Italy. So getting your daily water will be difficult. Next, please. So conclusion, the trail offers something for everyone. You get nature, you get level ground, you get good trails, you get more difficult trails, you get no trails at all. You get different seasons on the trail. In the center, you can hike year-round without much pre-planning. In the north and south, you need to prepare before you start hiking. For example, from North Cape, you hike about 5 days before you come back into civilization to get food, to get a shower, and maybe a night in the hotel, and then move on. And you get many, many, many fantastic sights along the trail. So if you haven't done it yet, it's worth doing it. Next, please. Yeah, if you have any more questions than we can clarify today, please contact me. I have my own webpage where all my hikes are noted in German and in English language. And this picture is in northern Sweden at Abisko, where I started a hike last year. Abisko is on the E1 trail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you, Detlef. That's very interesting to hear about this north-south experience on E1. And now we turn to an west-east, I would say more or less, namely E5, which Boudewijn from Netherlands will talk about. So Boudewijn, the microphone is yours. And you have to remember your microphone, Boudewijn. We cannot hear you. Please, your microphone in the bottom left.
I unmute.
Yeah.
Here.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we can hear you now. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am quite honored and pleased to have been invited to pronounce this E5 presentation for you. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Cela m'est un plaisir et un honneur d'être invité à tenir ce discours sur E5 pour vous. Guten Abend, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Ich fühle mich sehr verehrt und ich freue mich sehr, dass man mich gebeten hat, diesen Vortrag über E5 für Sie zu halten. Der restliche Vortrag ist auf Englisch und die deutsche Übersetzung finden Sie neben den Bildern. Ce discours continuera uniquement en anglais, mais vous trouverez les traductions françaises à côté des images. This is a map of E5, which has its beginning at Pointe-du-Rhin in Brittany, and by several variants leads to Verona, and if you want, to Venice. According to the 2017 edition of the publishing house in Cluj-Napoca. Slide 1. Slide 2. This is Paris, Champ de Mars. The initial stage of the speedwalking contest, Paris-Colmar, led me over the right-hand bank of the River Seine in the years 2011 and 2014. This didn't only mark my first steps in these contests, but also my most westerly ones on E5, albeit on a variant that is no longer considered as such. So I didn't make it to Brittany yet. Slide 2. André, a coiffeur from Paris, has an agreement with me to walk GR2 E5 in the spring of 2023, and so to follow the River Seine from its source to Paris. Here on the image, the River Seine, not far from Melun. During the preparation and the training for the 2014 edition of the Paris Colmar race, my brother Peter and I connected the spas of Vittel, Contrexéville and Bourbonne-les-Bains by feet. The Ballon d'Alsace constitutes the highest point of E5's passage through the Vosges Mountains. Here it intersects with E2. The passage through the Swiss Jura Mountains goes from the southwest to the northwest to the northeast, following the direction of the mountain chains. The section along the Rhine, during which the river has to be crossed several times, alternates between countries not less than 8 times in the section from Waldshut-Tingen to the Lake of Constance. The Schaffhausen waterfalls are a must to see. The banks of the Lake of Constance, in the town bearing the same name, represent the birthplace of the network of European long-distance trails. To be more accurate, the intersection of E1 with E4 and E5 is in the adjacent Swiss town of Kreuzlingen. Happy birthday! E5 starts its ascent into the Alps of Vorarlberg relatively gently. Oberstdorf in Bavaria is preferred as a starting place for the majority of those who are eager to walk E5, especially for the participants of summer mountain walking courses. Sadly enough, this choice implies the exclusion of the fantastic Hooggraad experience, with very rich flora, as you see displayed on this slide. Venneetberg is in the heart of Tyrol. It offers far views in all directions, but only after an exhausting ascent or after a ride in the cable cabin that could equally claim your breath. The Pitztal is a peaceful and charming contrast to the big mountains around it. Nevertheless, the majority of walkers prefers a bus ride to its charms in order to make it to Merano in 6 days. From the terrace of Braunschweiger Hütte, you look right inside the rapidly vanishing world of the glaciers. E5 peaks at an altitude of almost 3,000 meters at Pitztaler Jochel. If you took your climbing gear with you, this is the place to make use of it. The Passuria, an idyllic valley of southern Tyrol. Here we are already in Italy. Merano, Bolzano. Here the trip ends for most of the walkers, especially for the ones that adhered to the summer mountain walking courses. There is an intersection with E10 in Bolzano, but where exactly? It's also possible to make an appointment for a visit to Ötzi, the one who came back from the cold where he was lost some 5,000 years ago. More than a century after the ceasefire was declared for World War I, there are still battlefields on Monte Pasubio that testify of the merciless fighting that raged. Verona is the final destiny for the foolhardy and for the lovers of drama. For example, the one that includes Romeo and Juliet. Padova is a worthy prize for ongoing perseverance. However, it is no longer included in E5 in recent years. Dante appreciated this place more than his Inferno. Venice is the very and definite end, as long as we do not allow ourselves to embark in some vessel. In August 2020, I almost was the only visitor to the town. Now we pass to a general review of E5 and its reports to other E-passes. E5 is remarkable in this aspect that its use is virtually limited to the part between Constance and Merano Bolzano. That is extremely popular among German wanderers. Many of them even ignore the mere existence of a French part. Another particular fact, E5 is one of the shortest members of the family of E-passes, but in virtue of this quality, it is far from being the easiest one. On the contrary, people can come to a grinding halt when confronted with the technical challenges, or they can be seized by vertigo. Be sure to be well prepared for E5 because you will run into challenging situations that can be worsened by weather conditions. When you meet that demand, you will have a great time on E5. Thank you for your attention. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Merci votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, Baudouin. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. That was a very impressive and also very interesting spot down on the different places on E5. I'm going to Switzerland next week, and I'm more or less looking to go on E5 maybe on a day or two of that. So I was very much inspired by you. So thank you very much. Thank you. Now we are turning to John Pugnell, who has written this book, 6 Pairs of Boots, Spain to Cyprus on the E4 trail. So I am looking forward to hear, John, what you will be telling us about your book and about E4. The word is yours, microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Steen, and thank you for the opportunity to tell you about the E4, because the E4 is a magnificent opportunity to experience the huge variety that Europe contains. In this presentation, I hope to give a brief glimpse of the range of landscapes, cultures, and histories that the E4 visits, and maybe encourage you to take the trip yourself. First, some facts. The E4 starts at Tarifa, at the far south of Spain, and ends at Larnaca Airport on the east side of Cyprus. I walked this trail in sections between 2014 and 2019. My 12 trips were each about 5 weeks long. I walked 10,660 kilometers or 6,660 miles over 440 days. The trip only required a moderate level of fitness, time and motivation were most important. So the E4 passes through many types of landscapes. There are mountainous areas of great beauty, such as the Salzkammergut in Austria, shown here. Other ranges crossed by the E4 include the Pyrenees, the Jura of Switzerland, the Bavarian Alps in Germany, and many others. Some mountain ranges are well known and popular with walkers. There were tons of them on the top of Mount Olympus, but in other places, such as the Pindus Range, also in Greece, were very little visited. Now, the route doesn't require any greater technical mountaineering experience that you might not think by looking at this picture. This was of one of the most dramatic parts of the E4, which is from Bulgaria, where the E4 follows the Pirin and Rila mountains. This particular bit is the Concetto Ridge, or the Marble Ridge. It's not as difficult as it looks, in that there's lots of good handholds and footholds, and you're most unlikely to fall off. All the people walking at the same time as me, and it's a very popular walk, crossed without problems, even those with limited experience, although it is not a route to take in poor weather. As well as the mountains, the gorges are equally spectacular. This is the Iron Gates. I was looking at it from the E4, of course, which climbs the mountain of Veliki Strabak, and looking down over the River Danube to Romania. If you look down there, there's two huge barges being pushed along downriver, way, way, way below me, going through the Iron Gates there. Other impressive gorges include those of Navacelle and the Ardèche in France, and in Crete, the E4 goes down the Samaria and other less popular but still spectacular gorges. But don't get me wrong, not all of the E4 is in mountains. For 1,500 kilometers or 1,000 miles, the E4 crosses the Great Hungarian Plain, extending on through Vojvodina in Serbia all the way to Belgrade. This area is very, very flat, ideal for those who don't like climbing or going uphill. But it's also hugely interesting, with forests containing deer, fields of sunflowers like this, lots of grassland covered with purple flowers, bird reserves such as the Great Bustard Sanctuary and reed-lined lakes. And there are also traditional water wells made out of branches of wood, nodding donkeys producing oil, and more modern wind turbines. A walk along the E4 gives you time to enjoy the beauties of nature, especially the flowers and blossoms. It depends on the time of year, but there's usually something to admire. From crocuses pushing up their yellow and purple flowers as soon as the snow melts, to blue gentians in the Pyrenees, orchards of almond blossom in February in Spain, fields of red poppies in the Peloponnese, cornflowers and oxeye daisies along the edge of fields in Hungary. There are also birds and animals to spot too, although they move too fast for me to photograph. You get storks which build their nests on telegraph poles, marmots whistling in the Alps, and in the forest you might even glimpse wild boar. In Greece, you might even see some bear prints, larger than your own footprints, but you never, unfortunately, see the bears themselves, who have learned to avoid humans in order to survive. But the attractions of the E4 are not just those of nature. There are many villages, towns, and cities that make the walk worthwhile. In Spain, old villages, such as the one shown here, sit on hills or ridges, with a castle at their highest point, a church below, with a bar nearby, essential for refreshment, surrounded by a congested arrangement of red-roofed houses. The newer houses are grouped on the outskirts. Unfortunately, as these villages are on a high point, you face a tiring long climb at the end of the day to reach your accommodation. The E4 also visits important cities such as Vienna, Salzburg, Budapest, and Sofia, each with their own attractions. Now, the E4 is also a trail through the past. Some of the history you'll be familiar with, but some not. Pouvet Castle, shown here, was the site of a siege to defeat the Catars in 1210. The Catars were apparently a religious group I had never previously heard of. They believed in both God and Satan, did not eat meat, considered women equal to men as spiritual leaders, and did not acknowledge the authority of the Pope. Of course, they were ruthlessly crushed. Other historical sites visited by the E4 include the ancient Greek site of Delphi, the home of the oracle, where you follow one of the most ancient paths that you'd ever like to follow, which goes from Delphi down to the sea, where the ancients traveled up to hear the oracle. You'll also pass castles associated with the Moors and the Reconquista in Spain, and others from the time of the Ottoman Empire in Hungary and Serbia. Ancient and religious buildings are also visited. The icons, services, and traditions of the Orthodox churches and the monasteries in Serbia, Greece, and Cyprus were all new to me. And the E4 finally ends in the east by the Hala Sultan Teki Mosque in Cyprus, just by the airport. But then not all history is ancient. This sign by the E4 in Cyprus presumably dates from the Turkish invasion of 1974. I passed memorials, sad memorials to Austrian peacekeepers who were killed in that conflict, and followed the E4 through the UN buffer zone, which separates Greek and Turkish parts of Cyprus. Many war memorials to the dead from the First and Second World Wars were scattered throughout the route. Others remembered Cold War events, such as the Hungarian uprising of 1956. And near the northern border of Switzerland, the anti-tank defences by the E4 look really quite new. In practical terms, along the E4, there are many types of accommodation with a range of prices. Flower-bedecked hotels in Germany and Austria, rooms above hospitable bars in Spain, or you can be welcomed to a small house with a glass of palinka in Hungary, though I don't recommend you go for more than two. Gîte d'état with dormitory type accommodation is common in Spain. Mountain huts and refuges with bunks or long platforms to sleep on are found in many high places in Europe. Campsites in villages or by lakes, rivers, or spas are an economical option. And on a few stretches with limited official accommodation, wild camping is the easiest option, avoiding the need to find transport or divert to places off the trail. Laws varied, but I tried to camp where I would not be noticed and never left any trace, staying only for one night. Of the rare people who spotted my tent, nobody told me to move on. As always, though, you should consider the weather. Late snow added to my adventure on a few occasions, as you can see on the bottom of this slide. For those interested in gear, it was a Terra Nova laser competition tent, not ideally suited to snow, but I survived. One of the joys for me of my travels on the E4 was finding new types of food. Shown here is a stall where I was looking for breakfast in the morning in Hungary, where I had a surge of pleasure in finding this stall selling langos. Langos is a type of deep-fried flatbread, sometimes topped with cheese. I also discovered burek in Serbia, enjoyed sauerbraten in Germany, light cream-filled cakes in Austria and Hungary, lomo de cerdo in Spain, shopska salad in Serbia and Bulgaria, horta in Greece, and many other delights. Oh. And at the end of a long, dry, tiring day, the water in my water bottle warmed from the sun's rays, the first gulp of a cold beer was simply ecstasy. Then in the morning, after walking a while in the cool of the early morning light, I was invigorated by strong coffee with tostada y mermelada in Spain, or ham and eggs in Hungary. I chose ham and eggs for breakfast in Hungary because it was the only item written in English on the menu. which brings me to another problem. Of course, the E4 passes through many different countries, and 8 different languages are spoken by the people on the E4. And unfortunately for me, none of them are English, which is the only language I know, which you might have spotted from my poor pronunciation of some of the places I visited. However, I did manage, with the aid of phrase books, a willingness to look stupid and eat whatever it happened to be I pointed at the menu. Don't be too fussy. Although my experience would have been richer if I'd understood all these languages, lack of knowledge should not stop you making the trip. And a little effort at speaking the local language does help. I learned how to greet people on the trail and say thank you in all the languages, and memorized the letters of various Cyrillic scripts for long enough to reach the next country. Fortunately, there is usually someone in town who has a little English and is happy to chat. And the language of mine is universal. So the path lies ahead of you, stretching into the horizon, calling you forward. I hope one day you will take it and experience all the varied pleasures and beauties of the E4 as it calls you forward to walk over mountains, through valleys. I was walking alone, but you're never completely alone on the E4 because there's usually someone around, and meeting different people in different countries is one of the unexpected and unplanned pleasures of walking on the E4. And speaking to these people and learning a bit about their countries it all contributes to one of the aims that Rolf mentioned of the E-Path, which is to contribute to the friendship of nations. Shown here is a group from Serbia for Youth, who I just happened to meet on the side of the Lazarov Gorge in Serbia. Now, if you want to know more, as Steen mentioned, you can buy a copy of my book called 6 Pairs of Boots, Spain to Cyprus on the E4 Trail, by myself, John Pucknell, available from all good online bookstores. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Also for a very, very inspiring talk about E4. And I think you all can feel the inspiration, and I think we also jump out of our chairs and just start walking, because all what we have seen here from all 3 speakers, all 3 friends, that is very inspiring. So thank you very much to all of you, all 3 of you. Now we have 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes left for discussions, and I would like to hear if anybody are having questions, especially for our 3 friends who are, as you can see and hear, definitely experts on these issues. So you can either turn the microphone on, or you can raise your hand if you want to comment or ask for anything here from today's presentations. And don't be shy. We can't do anything for you. It's only on the screen. Oh, sorry.
So we have Ruben asking a question.
Okay, my question goes to the 3 of you. So if each one can respond to me. So from what you shown us, what was the best of what you've done, and the worst situation? What was the best situation that you can retire from all the trials that you made, and what was the worst one? So for the 3 persons have spoken, this is my question for both of you.
Can answer your question, Ruben. I already pointed out that for me, the Hooggraad experience, that is between Vorarlberg and the Bavarian town of Zondhoven, was extraordinary. It wasn't only interesting in its technical aspects because you really make a gratwanderung, but the plans were so varied and so rich that I have very good impressions from my photographs and in my memory. Unfortunately, I should have gone some weeks before to have real flowering plants. Now most of them were in fruits, but still recognizable. I cannot name a worst thing that I have encountered. I think everything worked out fine. So yeah, that may disappoint you, but no, there were no negative aspects.
Perhaps I could give a worst one then. When I was walking at the near the border of between Hungary and Romania, I got grabbed by two guys. They seemed to think I was a people smuggler because I was walking close to the border. Although I pointed out the way marks which showed I was really on the Ketura, which is the Great Plains Blue Route that the E4 follows there. Unfortunately, they didn't speak English. They didn't speak English, and my Hungarian is limited to very few words. So it took a little while to explain, and then explain to the border policeman that I was actually, walking a path, and I wasn't trying to bring refugees across the border. So on a subsequent trip, I got a little card made out by one of the bloggers on the Hungarian Ketura, which explained in Hungarian that I wasn't a people smuggler, that I wasn't lost, and I was just enjoying a walk along through their beautiful country.
Well, the worst part I had was in Norway, just before going into Sweden. There was supposed to be a bridge across the river. I came up to the bridge and it was, well, very much in ruins. And I considered it as life-threatening trying to get across that bridge. So I had to find another way getting across. I walked down the river to the delta before it goes into the lake. It was still relatively deep, but very, very wide, with many small islets in there. So water, land, water, land. And it was a long, long way across. And by the time I finally arrived on the other side, I was freezing. I was really, really cold. And it took me then quite a while of hiking before getting warm again. On the Swedish side, not that far from the border, was one of the huts from the Swedish club. And normally there is no one there, well, unless you want to stay there overnight. But because of Corona, they had a guy manning that shelter, and he was living in a tent because the shelter was not meant for a host, really. And I got inside and he had a stove running in the shelter and I could warm up again. And he told me, oh, this bridge, since at least 5 years it's broken, but the Norwegians don't repair it. Well, I got across, I made it, so it's okay. But that was about the worst I had on the E1. And the best was the good time, very, very good time going south from North Cape. I had good weather, mostly sunshine, no rain, very dry, but enough water for me. And I met very few people. It was great. It was nature. Reindeer and me, was it mostly, or just me? Yeah.
Thank you, Detlef. Just a question for
Having given it second thought, I could mention a worse experience, and that was ascending the Kraberg, the north face of Veneetberg, which is from Sams upwards to the south. I ascended this mountain by feet, but I returned to Sams because there was no accommodation at top of the Kraberg. And the next morning I returned to have the first cable cabin that got up. And I thought, you have to be early there. There may be lots of other people that want to go the same way. Well, I ended up in a queue and I was in maybe 10th position. And I thought, well, they might have to disappoint some 40 people standing in line, but they were all allowed to go into the cabin. And this was during the first COVID wave. Many people made awkward jokes about our situation, but it was very bad and it could have easily provoked many people to fall ill. I think that was the worst experience.
Okay, thank you. I can see now the time is gone, but those of you who want
sorry, Sten.
to stay, yeah, let me finish, please. Those who want to stay, though the time is gone, are welcome to do that. So we have a question, a remark from Mimo.
Yeah, thank you. Just one short ask to Detlef. When you were in Norway, the years, I mean.
I was in Norway several times. I was there 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think 4 years ago as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you very much. It's just related about the hand of the works that made the Norway Federation on marking E1. I just asked you about your difficulties that you had. You told us about some part in Norway.
Well, the difficulty for them is there are hardly any people living near the trail. So getting out there and marking it, you have to be with a couple of people and they have to tend for days to go on and on to do the marking. So I can understand it's very difficult for our Norwegian friends to mark all the trail there. And that's one thing I might want to add as a general comment. It's always more welcome by many people to make something new than to maintain it. And this is on all the European trails, I think something we should always keep to heart, rather not having an extra kilometer of trail, but maintain what we have, what was made, what was done. And maintaining is not just cutting the grass or cutting the trail, but marking it and to keep it a hikeable trail.
Thank you.
That was very wise comments here at the last minute here. I think, thank you very much, Detlef. And I think it is time to stop this event. We have promised to stop at 19:30, so we intend to do that. Just to say that the 2nd of July, we will celebrate the 50 years anniversary in Constance, and we will record it as we have done today. That will be Ruben, who will be our reporter on stage in Constance, and we will stream it live on Facebook on Saturday from 10 o'clock, and we will record it for later. And on YouTube, we will put both this presentation and the celebration on Saturday up after the 2nd of July. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to Boris. Thank you to Rolf for the history. Thank you to our three friends who gave us a lot of good experiences, all this. And at least, not at least, thank you very much to Jana and to Ruben. I can tell you other people, they were fighting for 5 hours the other day to make all the techniques working, especially to Facebook. So they had done a big job, huge job to make this working. Thank you very much. And to all of you, we wish you from our side a very nice summer. And I hope, we hope that you will enjoy it. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Yep. Thank you, especially Jana. Thank you very much.